recording. So as you can see here, the compression line was like this, and we compressed the material from here to down to here. Most of the material is gone because we've been experimenting with it, but you can see from the fractures that are left, there's this piece, and then here's another larger piece, and you can see that there are fracture lines this way, very clearly. And in fact, this material forms fracture lines perpendicular to the axis of compression, which is, the axis of compression is this way, perpendicular to this way. Forms fracture lines very easily. See that? Look at that. Clean cut. Now, if you want to cut it parallel to the axis of compression, it's quite tough. And if you do cut it, one of two things can happen. It can fracture and release a lot more energy, or it cuts like really thick clay. So let me see.
I'm sure nobody is stressed
See?
at all.
Like a rock. Can't cut it. But when you do, it fractures with more energy. You see it jumped up. Let me try on the larger piece. See, I'm pressing really hard, and it releases much more energy. Compare that to the previous case where I only had to press down just a little bit for it to form a nice fracture line. And you can see the line of fracture is not that clean. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's not that clean. Versus, let me see what's... Yeah, and here's another really interesting thing. Zoom in on this. See this piece right here?
Yeah.
It seems held together by some tiny force, right? I can pull this piece, and it will pull the other piece. Look. Come here, you can see they're separated. But still, they're not actually separated. They're connected by a tiny strand of graphene that is so strong that it can pull the entire weight of the other one.
Okay.
Look at that. Oh, it broke. But that's what you're seeing here. A tiny little strand that's somehow able to pull these two giant masses. What else? Yeah, I was showing you the cleaner fracture line. It's more of a clean break. There's not as much smudging.
Yeah.
Which is evidence that there is anisotropic behavior. And you can see here the planes are oriented more or less this way. You get several planes. They look like they've been compacted that way. You can see here, you know. You can see here they break. It's like almost like, yeah. And then you can see this is at a different angle, and here's like one of the strands connecting them. Quite interesting. Zoom in on this.
Oh, okay.
Just to focus. This particular SEM is not the most powerful. We'll see how good of resolution we can get. Okay, a little bit more. gotta get to about the right depth, and then maybe we can see more detail on the picture. Hey, look at the behavior. You just have graphene and then this one strand that happened to stick together pretty well. And when we pulled apart, this one happened to stick on the other side somewhat well. Maybe it's embedded in the other, like across somehow. And one possible way this could happen is when we were initially cutting this material, cutting it like this, when it was completely filled, cutting it this way was very tough because there was so much pressure resisting it from the sides, which means that when we pressed it down, it pressed out to the sides as much as possible. And when I was doing the initial compression, I could also see some squeezing out the sides, the material squeezing out of the machine out the sides, like goo, even though it's like solid right now when it's not under compression. So what that could mean is if initially there was like some graphene strands oriented this way and we started compressing this entire thing down, just by pure chance some of them were this way, the pressure from the sides could smash them together really tough. And you'd have a rather long strand really tightly compressed with each other going across the barrier. So let me see if I can zoom in more. Or magnify, focus, adjust. So we're starting to see more of the structure. And that does look like a fiber strand. You see those wrinkles? Graphene. Strange behavior. I just noticed when I one time fractured it and then I was pulling it apart, pulling the two pieces apart, one followed the other. And I couldn't see them. Like, is that a tiny, like, thing of graphene? Turns out it is. It's amazing. I mean, look how strong this thing is. These things are like 1,000, like 1,000,000 times its mass, but it's still pulling each one, dragging it across. So I'm going to take a picture of this. That's all.